Everybody, welcome. Hello. All right. I've got the slides, the video. We got everything we need. All right, let us get started. Welcome back, Molly. Oh, I gotta turn my backup recording. Always forget to the class.
Recording in progress.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Brain Club. I'm Mel Hauser. I use she, they pronouns. I'm the executive director of All Brains Belong. Welcome to Brain Club. Tonight, we have a very special Brain Club. They're all special, but this one's really, really special. We are going to be bright spotting 5 members of the All Brains Belong community who are making work for their brains. Before we get started, just to name, closed captioning is enabled. You just have to toggle it on if you'd like to use it. Depending on your version of Zoom, you might see the live transcript closed captioning icon. If not, look for the more ... and choose show subtitles. Or you can choose hide subtitles if you want to turn them off. If you are new to Brain Club, welcome. If you're returning to Brain Club, welcome back. But if you're new, what is Brain Club anyway? This is our weekly education program. Lizzie and Sierra, can you take over letting folks in from the waiting room? Thank you. So it's our weekly community education program for purposes of demonstrating All Brains Belong's approach to neuro-inclusive culture. It is to shift broader community awareness of the issues of concern and importance to the neurodivergent community, and to hopefully promote new ways of thinking and being in the world as we radically reimagine how we expect to be in space with other people, and hopefully transform culture by modeling what's possible. While we hope that this is a place where you feel safe and supported at all times, this is not a support group. It is not for medical or mental health advice. It's not the right place to make personal requests or address personalized needs or problem solving. It's also not a neurodivergent affinity space. All people are welcome to come and to learn. So we invite you to listen, to learn, to observe what a neuro-inclusive space can look like, and think about how what you're learning connects to your life. There is no one right way to participate. You can have your video on or off. Even if it's on, we don't expect anything of you. Feel free to walk or move or fidget or stim or eat or take breaks. I am hoping that at the end of today, we'll have a short period of discussion if you want, where you can use mouth words or chat. You don't have to, because observation is a completely valid form of participation at Brain Club. In addition to affirming all aspects of identity, one thing that's really important to our culture here is that we prioritize the group's needs over that of the individual. This really is about collective community coming together. So tonight's format, we have a pre-recorded panel interviews with 5 of our community members. And then we will have a short time for questions and discussion. That's my visual support to make sure I can see the chat. Oh, thanks, Lizzie, for posting all the things. If this is your first time at Brain Club, it's okay not to understand what's coming. We have a kind of a flow or a general format. Just keep coming back. It might take several times to get a sense for the flow. And Lizzie's going to post the frequently asked questions in the chat, which cover a lot of the logistics that sometimes people wonder about when they're new to Brain Club. All right, so all month long, Our theme has been that of the autism narrative. Of course, last week, if you missed it, was our fourth annual Shifting the Autism Narrative, the Impact of Stigma on Health. And Lizzie's going to drop a link to that if you missed it and you want to sign up to get the recording. It's a discussion around the what's the story? How did the autism narrative get constructed, and how do we unlearn it and center the experiences of autistic people? I also want to say before we begin with tonight's topic that we are so grateful to our community members who support Brain Club and make it possible for us to not only compensate our panelists, but all the time that goes into doing these interviews and video editing and all of it. We really couldn't do this without you, and we really, really appreciate all of you for being part of our community and supporting what we're doing here. Speaking of what we're doing here, we always say that to do anything for the neurodivergent community, we have to do everything. And employment is a big part of the problem. And so when we think about all the broken systems that are not working for neurodivergent people, workplaces are a really big part of that. The one size fits all of the workplace does not work for all brains. And often it is these environments that do not meet people's access needs, thwart them at every turn, and drive people into neurodivergent burnout. What we know is that autistic adults 2.5 to 8 times more likely to be unemployed or underemployed. 75% of ADHDers experiencing employment-related challenges. And we know, in both directions, that employment struggles and health poor outcomes are related, including that unemployment increases the probability of developing a chronic health condition by 83%. And of course, having a chronic health condition often makes it difficult to access employment that is not flexible and not able to be adapted to one's individual access needs. And there's a huge impact for that. So we are going to hear. I'm done with hearing from myself, so I'm gonna start playing our panel discussion with Summer Stelter from Limelight Restoration Services, Kit Turner from Petite Paw Grooming, Amy Noyes and Miranda Jane from ND Friendly Life, and Jose Alejandro Rivera from Proximia Sound. And with that, I'm going to stop share, bring over the video, reshare, because I never remember to click the share sound button. All right, while the video is playing, you're welcome to use the chat while we watch. Here we go. Well, thank you both so much for doing this. The point of the Spring Club is really just to spotlight people in our community and like the cool work that people are doing and spread the word about what you're offering and how you got to be doing this work. So I'd love to hear if you could introduce yourselves and tell the Brain Club audience what you're up to these days.
Terrific. I'm Miranda Jane, and I work with Amy Noyes, and we are opening a coaching and consultation business or company together, basically specifically working with late identifying neurodivergent people. And we're doing supported self-assessment for people who are really self-identifying but wanting a little bit more kind of data. And then I do nervous system regulation work as well for that intersection of trauma and neurodivergence that so often occurs.
Our whole interest really is to support people who don't necessarily need a formal diagnosis, but they've sort of self-identified, they have this inclination, or now their kid has gotten diagnosed and they're like, wait, could this be me? And then they could come to us. And really the idea was to what we both had found before finding All Brains Belong, I knew I was autistic, but I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. So part of what we want to offer is that people can kind of come in, get this confirmation from two ADHDers, professionally trained, and then we can put them together with other people.
I am Summer Stelter. I go by she, her, and I own a company called Limelight Restoration Services. We specialize in fire, water, and mold damage to structures. And I've owned it for almost 12 years. June 1st will be 12 years. So I'm pretty excited about that. And reflecting back, it was quite a process. A lot of overworking, a lot of burnouts, perseverance, and just trying to keep going, because even if I decided not to, I was still going to have to go find a job somewhere else. So may as well put all my energy into continuing trying to do this. And it's an amazing field to be in. Being able to work for yourself is very helpful, especially when you're neurodivergent. I didn't know I was neurodivergent when I started the business, but realizing a year later after being diagnosed with autism that I can do things even more differently at my company because I'm the owner, but I can also spread that information to my employees. And I mean, not only that, but I work with clients that are going through really traumatic experiences. So they've had disasters happen like fire, water damage, molds, their houses could be making them sick. And so we go in and we're able to support them.
I own a small holistic dog grooming salon in West Danville, Vermont. I started as a bather 13 years ago-ish, probably a little more than that now. And I actually applied on a whim because I was working retail and it was causing my anxiety to spike really bad. And it was kind of getting to the point where my brain was like, you hate your job so much, let's find a way to not have to do it. I saw the ad for a position to work with dogs. I was like, I love dogs. My mom has bred Pomeranians for most of my young adult teenage years and childhood. So I was around dogs all the time. And I was so excited to try and ended up getting the position the day of. I thought working with dogs would be easier, and it definitely is in some ways, mostly just in the ways that my brain works. I'm just better with dogs. Probably my favorite things about it is getting to make the dogs feel better, and getting to see like their transformations from like the dirty, dingy little dogs to the cute little fluffy dogs that we all love to see sitting on our bed like a stuffed animal. And I just ended up being really good at it. So I get that kind of feel good feeling whenever I learn something new about it, or a new technique or skill or something that can set me apart from others. So it just makes me really excited to be able to do it.
I've really always engaged with the world in creative ways since I was young. Part of that was to kind of co-regulate with my environment in a lot of ways and kind of articulate aspects of what I was experiencing. And in all of the kind of environmental noticings and feelings and all of that, I actually studied architecture when I was kind of an undergrad and was trained as an architect. And that experience had a lot of influence on the diverse tool set that I have, but also the ability to work with a lot of different types of people in different settings, and the opportunity to kind of be exposed to different types of design and making process. And I didn't realize it at the time, but the work environment of the office space and the stresses that really came from not having access needs met. And I did not know that language at the time, and I definitely wasn't identified as being a multiply neurodivergent person. But that the stresses of not having my access needs met at the time have forced me to take a break from that realm and take a step back. So I left that world and came across an opportunity that was merging a bit of what I was more focused on at the time, which was music. And it was merging music with kind of spatial design and travel. So I spent some time in Ghana and working with a small community in rural Ghana to design a space with them. And that was a transformative moment when I kind of knew that I wanted to chart a bit of my own path, right? Like not jump back into the office realm and integrate a little bit more of what I was noticing, which was the sound and space and the cultural dynamics of how we interact, but kind of the creative side of that and lean into that. So I ended up really doing a lot of research and making these like maps and field recordings. So that's like environmental sound recordings at different places and being very sensitive to my environment. That led me to go back to school and kind of focus a little bit on the sound and space idea. And within that, I was able to find a bit of my groove.
It's amazing. And I did not know that part of your story of like, I was in this like shitty dead end situation and I figured out how to get out of it. Like, so many people are in that spot. Where they know that work is ruining their lives. They feel so stuck. They like can't even imagine doing something different. If you could rewind like to that time, like I imagine it wasn't easy, and it didn't happen necessarily quickly. Of like I have to get out of retail and I'm going to apply for this this job that has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. Like, do you remember what that was like to navigate that stuckness?
Yeah, actually, that's probably one of the few things I remember very clearly about my life because it was such a huge turning point. But I had tried multiple types of jobs. So I worked at a rehab center in a kitchen. I did cleaning for like cottage rentals. I did, the basic retail job at Kenny Drugs. I would always the way my brain is that I have to be the best at what I do all the time, so it's exhausting. And every single person I've ever worked for is like, "You're amazing. You're so good at your job. You're so good at this. You're so good at that." And I move up the ranks almost too quickly to the point where I get so overwhelmed that I'm like, "Hold on, I can't do this." And probably like it takes a few months to a year or so, and then I'm so broken mentally by the end of it that I was just like, this needs to change.
I could say also was like, I have a background in social work and I have a master's in transpersonal psychology, but I was, a contractor. I was working with Weston as a builder, and I was also just tremendous burnout and physically, mentally, emotionally, and I just can't do that work anymore. So it was really through like Boost and Nesp and all these employment programs that you put together that I started going like, oh, wait. And then just like validation, being able to start saying what my access needs were, was like, oh, I still have this skill. And not only do I have this skill, people in ABB are saying you could actually help people. And so it was really through that encouraged me to start a business. And
I was feeling really stuck. Internalize everything. I would say yes too often. I would be fawning. I would be ruminating. I'd have self-doubt, depression. I would have loss of skills, making excuses, daydreaming, and I'd have burnout. And so when I realized those things were happening, something needed to change. I mean, I'd go to therapy sometimes and I would like exhaust everything I could, and it would not work out. And that is like, I waited too long. I tried too hard to make this work, but I had to change my environment. Yeah, definitely. I had to change the people that I was working with or the actual work I was doing. And it's not easy to make those decisions. Going on interviews and the whole looking for a job is so challenging. But I would try to get support, and I think now maybe it would be different.
Like so you're stuck in an office environment and without having a lens for understanding how you even moved through the world and experienced the world per se, at least not having language to describe that or think about that. You figured out how to tap into your strengths and figure out how to make a living based on your strengths. That's so cool.
I remember having to watch my mom's dogs for her while she was away, and I think she had like 5 or 6 Pomeranians at that time. Yeah, and I remember just thoroughly enjoying every second of it.
It's been a journey. It is a journey. I wouldn't consider it kind of like an end, right? Like I always thought I'd get to like some threshold and it would all start making sense, right? And I think there is a little bit more of the sense, but it's kind of like the license you can give yourself to make your own sense, and to be in communication with others in creative ways around that, I think is pretty empowering.
Then shortly after that, here's Miranda, and then we're meeting together, going, "How do we do this?" And then we just said, "We love being together so much. We just have such a great work relationship. A lot of same values. We laugh a lot, but we really support each other. We really show up sometimes." Not in great spaces, really like dealing with post-exertional malaise or dealing with some flares. And we thought, well, what a great experience would be one that your coworker knows what you're experiencing and can really be there for you in that, but also neither of us have to show up. Like we get to support each other in showing up.
On this journey, now you own your own business. Like, what is that like?
That is hard, not gonna lie. I never really saw myself owning my own business. My family has only ever owned their own businesses all my entire life. So I saw how hard it was for them, and I was like, they're always struggling. They're always, trying to find ways to make more money. They're always trying to find ways to, make their business better so that they don't feel like they're always behind. And I was really, really scared to start my business because of that. And then when I did, I think because I was surrounded by my family's mentality of like just work yourself to the bone and hope for the best kind of thing, I started out that way. And I very quickly burnt myself out very, very fast. It didn't help that I was having a lot of health concerns that didn't have any answers at the time. But I think when I got my therapist was kind of when I realized I didn't know at the time what access needs were, and I didn't know that term until I started going to All Brains Belong. Even my therapist didn't call it that, but they did instruct me that I needed to make my business work for me, not the other way around. And they were very, very adamant in helping me find a schedule that wouldn't burn me out, but at the same time allowed me to still make enough money to survive.
Here you are, two ADHDers who have obviously it's like everything we all do is a work in progress, but like you are figuring out how to professionally be in the world in a way that works for you. Can you speak at all to that process and how you've approached figuring out your access needs and how to make work for you?
Absolutely. And that is actually how this whole thing came about, was thanks to you, Mel. Um, I I don't even think Amy and I were in the same group, but I think I was in a group for it was a medical group for self-employment. And you had someone from the Center for Women in Enterprise come and present. And one of the things that she said was that the most underrated tool, or the like low-hanging fruit, this thing that like everyone should do for their business that people just don't do enough, is have an advisory board. And I just thought, ABB, I need an All Brains Belong advisory board stat. And you suggested, first of all, I think you specifically told me you need to meet Amy. And you suggested we get on Discord and, that I could have that advisory board. And so I put the word out on Discord, and we've been meeting, Amy and I, and there's like 5 of us that meet every week. And then, and it was really because I was so worried. I was terribly burned out. I was working for myself. I had built my own business. I'd been doing it for 10 years, and I had burned myself out over and over and over because the systems I created, I couldn't break out of I was so masked. I didn't even know I had needs, or what they were. And so I really needed an external advisory board to help keep me honest and keep me living within my means, kind of in terms of capacity.
And while it was very, very hard, and ultimately I did have to close my business for a while, it was purely because of my health. It had nothing to do with me being burnt out at that point. And I think when I reopened, after I had all of the new wordage and verbiage that came with All Brains Belong, I was like, holy smokes, I was starting to do that when I was open before, but I didn't get to actually implement it all because I had to close. And now I've gotten to do that. And I think it's even now I struggle with it because there's always, capitalism up our backs. We're going to say backs. And it's always feeling like urgent to make more money and urgent to make things work.
I would also just add to rest. I think work is a lot of the doing, and in a lot of ways I thought that I am what I do, right? And then there's like the being aspect of what it means to integrate a lot of these experiences, which means kind of spending time maybe reflecting or processing in different ways. There could be just like, spending time away from screens and going for a walk. It could be chasing that elusive 8 hours.
It's recognizing from your body's perspective that you need to get your access needs met. So what I wrote, I hate looking down because I feel like a robot, but I want to read it. I use ChatGPT too because I love it. I have to check in with my body and my mind daily to gauge how I'm functioning. So I need to just pay attention to, is my throat dry? Do I have a raspy voice? Do I have a headache? Do I feel fatigued? Like there's so many checklists that I kind of have to go over to be like, should I work remotely or should I go into the office? Should I not even work today? And most days I'll take a longer break, like maybe an hour, hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours in the middle of the day because I need to get some dopamine. And I also need to rest my mind from staring at lots of computer stuff and apps and, having IT nightmares and writing things, having people interrupt me and asking me questions. I just need to have a little break and to go into nowhere land. So finding your access needs is really trying to figure out what makes you feel comfortable, what makes you feel at ease. And when we're working all day long and we've taxed our brains out, or if you're doing manual labor and you've taxed your body out, it's really a great idea to maybe not be thinking so much and be paying attention to what your body's saying, because they do not always, well, for me, they never really line up together.
The more support you can have of someone who loves you, meeting with you and being like, but don't you need more snacks? Could we get you some more snacks somehow? Like helping you remember what it is you need and that you get to have that has been a game changer. And it's something that I don't know if I will ever get to the point where I default to thinking about what I need and figuring it out and knowing it because of vilexithymia and interoception and whatever. But it's easy to ask Amy if she needs a snack or
knowing yourself on a level that could start to practice like loving yourself and appreciating yourself and being softer with yourself, because I think that process can also kind of ripple out into the community. And
I'm very slowly learning that I tend to gravitate towards closing doors on myself before other people can close them on me. And so one thing I'm working really, really hard on with my therapist right now is not doing that. And I notice when things are going really, really well, it's so easy for me to leave every single door open and be like, there are so many options for me and I'm going to make it work and everything is going to work out. And then the moment somebody like happens to shut a door in my face, it doesn't even have to be a slam. It can be a gentle little click. And I'm just like, oh no, everything full stop. I don't know how to think anymore. And my brain is just done. Yep. And being able to move past that, I've learned I have to give myself a day or two to just breathe and be like, okay, self-pity if you need to for a day or two, cry about it if you need to, get angry if you need to, whatever it is, feel the feelings, and then try and reopen all those doors and find a new way or a new hallway or a window that's cracked open, something. Find something and you will get back to that space of having all the options.
Even working with somebody who understands PDA, like we're working together. If someone suggests something, the other one's like, wait, no, I can't do that. And the other one's like, we don't have to do that. And then the other person's like, okay, well, just tell me a little bit about it. So then we start talking, and then by the end, they're like, we totally want to do that. We absolutely.
Do you have any advice for people that are stuck?
I do. And I mean, my experience and everything that I've done in my life, I feel like was trial and error. But I just always was hopeful that in the future, it may be better than what my present situation was, because a lot of my present situations of my past were hell. And it was really hard to think about what would happen in the future. And a lot of times I didn't even live in the present. I just lived in this fictitious, future world that never went the way that I was hoping. But I think when I look back at being stuck, when you realize these feelings, that you're unhappy at your workplace, whether it's the work that you're doing or it's the team that you're working for, it's important to recognize that and to pay attention to it, because if you ignore it, it will only get worse. And wishing and hoping that someone's just going to come up to you and be like, hey, here's this opportunity, can happen sometimes. But for a lot of people, most of us, it's not a reality. And so I think just really thinking about in like my individual interests and, what I'm good at doing and trying to incorporate that where I work.
Getting to know yourself a little bit more and know what your gifts are and know maybe what skills you can you're interested in learning, or that one might need to learn to kind of balance out certain things.
Things that maybe we both struggle, like if we feel like particularly when you're masked in competency, where you think I should be able to do this thing, or I can do this other thing, but I can't do this, I should be able to. There's been moments where we get together on, Zoom, and we'll do the thing together and like point it out. And so that it takes so many less spoons, because it's like, and just even that like self-doubt that maybe trickles in over time of like, I'm doing this thing, but am I actually doing it right? And you walk away feeling like I feel like I have so much more energy than I would have if I did that alone. We're talking about how do we, put systems in place? How do we, it's sort of still dealing with the struggle. But what I find with Miranda is we are an absolute autistic joy.
Do either of you have any other advice for folks who like are in a state of struggle? Like they can't even imagine like starting a business, finding a collaborator, because they're just like stuck and they're stuck, and the stuckness is their known quantity, which is safer than the unknown quantity. So what do you think about that?
I mean, my first thought is actually to really respect the stuck. I trust that the stuck is probably protecting you in some way. And so the first thing I would do is look at like what in what ways might this stuckness be benefiting me, or what is actually working about where I'm at right now, even though I know there's a list of reasons this is not sustainable and you're miserable and you want to change everything. But if you're stuck, then I think there's some part of you that may know something important.
Honestly, if I could tell anybody to do anything when they're stuck, is try everything. Because if even if nothing works, maybe you'll think of a new idea because you tried all these other ideas and something pops up where somebody tells you something at one job and you're like, holy smokes, I never thought of that. Or you happen to see an advertisement while you're working a random job somewhere and you're like, holy smokes, that sounds fun. Let's try it for a while. Always get the new job before you quit the old one, though, please.
Recognizing that you're stuck, making a plan of what you can do to get yourself out of that situation, and having support around looking for a new work environment is really important. I mean, I like routine. I need routine. And I think that is a sort of a mindset of trying to break an old routine and to get into a new one.
There's a lot of different forms of being stuck, right? And of course, there's like financial stuckness, or like this too muchness of certain, like working too hard to then where the self kind of how can I say really makes itself known that it needs to be taken care of in different ways, right? Which could be also environmental, not having your access needs met, or it could be like an element of people pleasing, right? But there's an element that could be also unknown to that stuckness.
So I think for people that are feeling stuck, being able to recognize that you're stuck and to try to come up with a plan to help you. And I had been in relationships where it took me a year to get out of them. I mean, talking about like romantic relationships, I had been at workplaces that took me a year to plan to get out of them.
Being able to spend enough time kind of articulating your access needs, right? And this is kind of a first step into getting to know yourself a little bit more.
And I need to really look at what is working that I want to preserve before I start tweaking things and making changes. And I know that's also really hard to do when you're in that state where you're stuck, but you just so desperately want to get out.
And I think for me, my perspective really comes from a place of start talking about it. Because of, if you've been a masked person for so long, you've camouflaged, you have this idea that you should be something, you should be further along, maybe you shouldn't be stuck, and you are. But to realize that you're not alone, that there's so many of us that have been in that stuck place, just completely isolated, and that if you have the ability, because a lot of times we do these panels, right? And it's Miranda and I who are sort of, maybe like on the image of like, oh, they're starting business, they're out of their stuckness. We're actually not out of our stuckness. We're actually in our stuckness all the time. But what we have now is the ability to talk about it with each other, ability to have somebody see you, have someone care about you. And so really it can take a lot to start just saying like, I'm stuck. just to even say I'm stuck. Because if Miranda hadn't gone to that employment group and said I'm stuck and like really listened to what Gwen had to say, I'm assuming it was Gwen had to say, we wouldn't be meeting right now. Like if I didn't come to you, if I didn't see your, all brains belong and I've got to, what is that? I need that. I would still be there. Both of us were in tremendous burnout when we met. I maybe had been out of burnout a little bit more than Miranda even when we first met, but we were there in the in the stuckness. And we know what that feels like. And we continue to know the ebb and flow of what it means to be stuck and unstuck and stuck and unstuck. And that might just be the way of it. And so not to think this internalized ableist way of like, there's gonna be this answer and then all of a sudden I'm gonna be out of that, that it really is about building relationship. It really is about asking that, getting your advisory board together so that you have the opportunity to be seen in your life for the gifts and the talents and the beauty of your brain and how you can share your brain with the world, and that so many of our brains have not been valued in the normative culture, and this is an opportunity to be in the brilliance of the joy of being autistic and being in the beauty of our individual brains.
Mic drop right there. That was amazing. I just want to say, I think that was probably one of my favorite ever Brain Club panels. And it just feels like it's such a privilege to bear witness to the journeys of all these people who I care so deeply about and I'm just so proud of. Um, Once again, thank you to Summer and Kit and Amy and Miranda and Jose for sharing your stories and for not just, I mean, it's one thing to say, here are people who are making it work. That's not actually what I heard. I heard the story of authentic, I am in it. I am in it and I'm managing being in it sometimes. That's the story I heard. I also heard about chronically unmet access needs and pressure to mask by the environment is a recipe for autistic burnout. I heard a lot about stuckness, mostly because I asked about it every 5 seconds. But I heard not just strategies for quote dealing with it, but also that wisdom of honoring it, respecting it. I also heard reflections, not just about access needs, what we need for full and meaningful participation, but I heard our panelists talk about what it was like to find a way for their strengths and the things that bring them joy to be part of how they spend their time. And then I think what we heard at the end there, that we're not alone and it's interdependence with peers, whether it be a group of people you get feedback from, or maybe it's a business collaborator, or it's just friends and family in your life that you rely upon. I think the myth of independence, we are always talking about that at Brain Club. There's nothing wrong with being connected to and relying on other people. Um, so I thank our panelists and I thank all of you for being here and being part of our community. I want to prepare you for next week's Brain Club. We are revisiting a book called Sincerely Your Autistic Child, which is a collection of essays written by autistic adults. It's a really, I think actually I think I'm just gonna play our book chat we did it in July. I'm gonna play the book chat instead of trying to recreate the book chat because of how powerful I think this book is. So no pressure, like all of our book chats, no pressure to read the book or listen to the book. We pluck out themes and quotes And it's really a really powerful book, and I look forward to sharing it with you next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye.